Hi everyone, my name is Jane Raymond-Shaw and I'm on OSFI's Board of Directors. You have joined the second session in our Engineers in a Digital World programming stream. This session is called Engineering and Cybersecurity. This session will explore how cyber attacks happen and how engineers can keep themselves and their organizations safe. Our presenter for this session is Cengiz Sadr, right here.
Yes, perfect.
Cengiz is a retired telecommunications engineer who spent his career working in cybersecurity and communications infrastructure. He is a frequent speaker on the engineering and cybersecurity circuit and has been recognized with numerous awards for his work. There will be a Q&A period after this presentation, so hold on to those questions. For those in the audience, just walk up to the floor mic or raise your hand for a runner to bring a mic to you. For those in the virtual audience, please submit your questions in the Q&A box. And we'll try and get through as many questions as possible while keeping the session on track, which is supposed to be finishing around 2:15. We also invite our in-person and virtual guests to tweet highlights from this session with the hashtag EngCon. So let's get started. Please welcome Cengiz Sadr.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Jane, for the introduction. Thank you, OSFI, for the opportunity, and thank you, everyone, for attending in person and online. Before I start my presentation, I would like to mention a very important point. As you may have heard recently that a 22-year-old girl called Mahsa Amini was killed by the police in Iran about a month ago, and there have been some protests going on, and the government is killing people, attacking students and children. Because of this reason, I am here because I had this commitment a few months ago. But I'm not feeling well, and I'm not in the mood of presentation and even attending a conference. So I apologize in advance. Please bear with me. Okay, I start with some examples of some major cyber attacks with some specific points about each attack. This one is the interesting one, the oldest recorded attack which went public, happened on April 27, 1986 on the HBO network. People were watching a movie at night, and all of a sudden this message displayed, and the attacker complained about $12.95 subscription fee for HBO. And after a few minutes, it disappeared, and the movie started to stream again. So no damage happened other than that interruption. But this is an interesting because that's the oldest recorded attack that happened on a network. So I start with LinkedIn attack in 2012. What happened in 2012, some usernames and passwords of LinkedIn users were posted on this Russian hacker forum, and also was for sale on the dark web for 5 Bitcoin each. And at that time, people understood that LinkedIn was attacked, but it took until 2016 for LinkedIn to reveal the details of the attack. The total number of affected customers, 165 million, and as you can see, there was a damage for LinkedIn. The other one happened in 2013. Yahoo was attacked, and in 2013 and 14, Verizon was negotiating to purchase Yahoo, And because of this negotiation which was going on, Yahoo did not want to reveal any information about the attack. So and the total estimate was about $350 million lowering in the price within the negotiation. But there is no other information reported. Yahoo mentioned that state-sponsored actors attacked Yahoo, and the $3 billion is just an estimate because there was no detailed information revealed for that one. In 2015, we have an attack on OPM, Office of Personnel Management, the US government entity. Actually, what happened, OPM had 2 attacks in 2015. The first attack, some social security number and names and emails were compromised. On the second attack, some specific information, very sensitive information for background checks, such as financial information or mental health information of some US government employees were compromised. US government officials mentioned that the attacker was a state-sponsored, supported by China. And also they mentioned that there is no evidence that the stolen information were ever used. And that was the report that was published by the government. In 2016, this one is very interesting. In 2016, this adult friend finder networks was hacked. And of course, sensitive information were leaked. And sensitive information you can guess because many customers were married. And there is an informal report that says in 2016, after this attack happened, the number of divorces in the US increased. The total number of impacted customers were over 412 million. And this is very interesting. Again, the reason for this attack was that this company was using SHA-1, secure hash algorithm generation, first generation, for encrypting and storing passwords. SHA-1 was broken in 2004 and 5, and this attack happened in 2016. So that's very interesting that this company was still using SHA-1. And you may not believe this, there are companies around today that they are still using SHA-1. We have SH2 and SH3, the third generation now is very secure and available for encryption and storing passwords. In 2017, Equifax attack happened. This is very interesting attack because now it's being used as a kind of training and education for cybersecurity professionals. What happened here, a patch was released from one of the software providers that Equifax was using for their server. And usually when a software provider releases a patch, sometimes this patch is adding some features and functions, and sometimes fixes a vulnerability on the software, which in this case was the case. And the reason for this attack was delay in patching the server. Very simple thing that didn't happen. So attackers, as soon as the patch was released, because in the patch they have to put the detail of what is going to be fixed by the patch. Attackers who follow everything in the market, they realize what the vulnerability is, and within the time that the patch was released and the servers were patched, the servers were attacked, and Equifax got over $700 million damage for this attack. In 2018, Marriott Hotel was hacked. This one again is another interesting. Marriott Hotel, 2 years prior to that, in 2016, purchased Starwood Hotel series, but did not integrate the Starwood's IT into their own IT platform. So they used two separate ITs like an island which connected to each other. What happened was Starwood was using the older IT platform and IT system and IT technology, and even they had one attack before in 2014, which Marriott did not know about. So what happened in this case, Starwood was attacked through the older IT that they had, and then they basically connected to the Marriott's IT and attacked Marriott and got over 500 million data of customers for Marriott. And you see the damage. Facebook, another interesting thing. If you remember, in 2018 was a message from Facebook saying that we are trying to secure our servers and put more security in it. That message was released in 2018. This incident happened in 2019, indicating that they did not really do anything to protect their servers. And as you can see, it says who attacked, no attacker. What happened was several servers of the databases of Facebook did not even have a proper security for their passwords. So what happens if someone could get the IP address of the server and the way to access the server could get the information? Very easy, very simple. So that's why there is no attacker, because many people could do it and they did it. So hopefully after 2019 it's fixed. And the last one of example of the cyber attacks is the SolarWinds supply chain. Happened in 2020. This is very interesting. SolarWinds is a software provider for supply chain. And over 18,000 organizations are subscribed to this software and using this software. What happened in this case? Attackers attacked the SolarWinds update process, and they added a malware, a Trojan malware, to that update process. And what happened? These 18,000 customers, which they were getting periodic updates from SolarWinds, every time they were getting updates, they were including that malware. And that malware were going to their system and infecting their system. The reported number of impacted organizations is about 50, but 18,000 customers had the SolarWinds updates. So the real impact is not really known. And also, SolarWinds mentioned that the attacker was Russia-backed hackers. So that's the information which was released on the report. Now, I give you some recent statistics about cybersecurity. Verizon is one of the major service providers in US with a global footprint. They have over 200 data centers across the globe. They have 7 data centers in Canada, in major cities in Canada. And Verizon claims that over 85% of internet traffic in US passes through their network. For past 14, 15 years, Verizon is creating annual report called the DBIR, Data Breach Investigation Report, and based on total number of incidents and total number of breaches, they do some analysis and provide some findings. What happened in 2022, this information is based on their latest report, DBIR 2022. On this report, they have used some collective information from the previous years to create some patterns and some interesting data which we could not see it in the previous years. For example, On the left side, you see the 4 major paths or gates that your asset can be attacked by attackers. The first one, it says credentials, usually means stolen credentials. Second one is through phishing. Third one is through exploiting vulnerabilities. And the fourth one is through botnet, based on the percentage of which gate or which path has been used. And at the bottom, you can see this is the collective analysis based on over 900,000 incidents and over 230,000 breaches. And everyone knows the difference between incident and breach. Not every security or cyber attack incident ends to a data breach. So incident is when a cyber attack happens. Breach is when that cyber attack is successful and a data compromise happens. So that's the difference between data breach and incident. The right side, it shows the increase in number of ransomware attacks, specifically in a global scale, between 2017 to 2021, which shows increase up to 20% or above 20% just in ransomware attacks. This one, another interesting graph from the same report. Here, it indicates the pattern of incidents based on the type of attack that happens. For example, when it says, or category of the attack that happens. Say, for example, on top you see it says denial of service. Denial of service means any type of attack that availability of data is compromised for right users at the right time. And if you remember the CIA, the 3 major pillars of security, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. If availability is compromised, that's denial of service. The second one, you see system intrusion. System intrusion is when attackers basically get into your system for whatever reason that they could get into your system. That's like hacking. They get to the system. Ransomware happens there. Most of the ransomware attacks happen through system intrusion. And you can see the yellow one is web application. Web application is kind of called one-shot attack. That means there is no follow-up thing. The user opens a malicious website, enters the information is gone, boom, that's it. So the information is stolen. This one is from same report. Previous one was for incidents. This is for data breaches. For data breaches, we see that system intrusion is on top, above 40% in a global scale, and denial of service that we saw on the previous graph. Here I have the 2 graphs side by side that you can compare it. On the left side, you have denial of service, which was availability compromise. Here you have system intrusion. System intrusion also includes the denial of service, includes ransomware. So this is type of patterning how these category of attacks are happening in a global scale. This one is interesting. This one is a summary of findings in a global scale for different industries. And the total number of incidents and breaches that you see at the bottom is for 2022. So this is basically only for 2022 report. And here, that's interesting that you can see the maximum number of incidents On the left side of the table, you have incidents. On the right side, you have breaches. You can see that the maximum number of incidents goes for the category of professional. Category of professional includes science, technology, and engineering. And that's very interesting, that you can see the maximum number of incidents are happening for category of professional. And on the breach side, you can see the maximum number of breaches happened for financial side or financial industry, which is, of course, the main reason for cyber attacks. Financial gain is the main reason. But again, if we go to professional, you can see the second highest number of breaches happen in the professional category. And that's very interesting because, I repeat again, technology, science, and engineering are included in this category. And we have the second largest number of breaches in the professional category. And you can see that 263, that's the number of small businesses which had data breaches. Small businesses, as per definition of Verizon, is the organizations or companies with less than 1,000 employees. So above 1,000 is large enterprise, below 1,000 is small business. And you can see that 263 is the number of small businesses which had data breaches in 2022. This is from the same report, but in North America only. The previous slides were in global scale. This one is in North America. And in North America, as you can see, system intrusion is over 60%. And that's a huge number of breaches in North America that happens through system intrusion. As I mentioned, again, I repeat, system intrusion is when hack happens, when attackers get access to your system. Ransomware, they block your, or they encrypt your file, or they block your system completely and ask for ransom money. That's how a ransomware attack happens. So that's why you see the largest one. The second one is social engineering, and social engineering is where the phishing resides there. Because social engineering is mostly through psychological and emotional motivation of people to attack. And phishing is the major type of social engineering attack, which is the second one in based on this pattern that you see here from 2022 DBIR. And this is from the same report, again in North America. As you can see, on the left side, it shows the type of attack that's happening. Ransomware is about 90% in North America. The type of attacks that happened in 2022. And the total number of incidents and breaches at the bottom is for North America only. In the middle, you have the type of, or the path, the way that attack happens. And you can see phishing is about 80% in North America. It's huge. And North America includes, in this report, includes US and Canada. And you can see that phishing is a huge number of the way that attackers attack. And on the very right side, you can see that the majority of these attacks happened through using the stolen credentials. It can simply be just an email address. Email address is considered a credential. And as I mentioned in one of the previous attacks that I mentioned there, in dark web, just username and password was for sale for 5 Bitcoin each in 2012 and 2013. So now I go to cost of a data breach. What is a cost of data breach? I use this information from IBM's 2022 Cost of a Data Breach report. That's a very interesting report. As you can see here on the left side, it shows the average total cost of one single data breach. In 2022 is $4.35 million. The average cost of one single data breach. And as you can see, in 2022 is the highest. And of course, one major reason for the total more number of attacks and also more cost is the virtual work that is happening or happened in 2021, 2022. And as you can see, the increase started in 2020 when we went to lockdown for COVID. On the right side, it shows the cost of one single record when it's compromised. In 2022, the cost of one single record is $164. And this is the average again. And later in this report, we can see the number of countries and the average or the total cost of data breach for them. And as you can see, US is number one. I cannot read the number from here, but you can see it. I have to look at here, 9.44 for 2022. That's the total cost of a data breach in US. And I go back here. One interesting point. Number 3 is Canada. That's scary. Canada is number 3 based on basically the third country of the world with the highest total cost of data breach based on this report. Here we can see the average cost of a data breach by industry. Interesting point, healthcare is one of the most regulated industries in North America and basically in the world. And you can see that in 2022, we had 10 that's by million, the total cost of data breach in healthcare industry. That's huge, that's huge. And again, I repeat, the interesting point for that is because it's very, very highly regulated. So we should not expect to see, first of all, attack happens in that area because of many, many standards that we have, many regulations and rules that all the involved organization must comply with. And also we should not see the cost this high. This is the reason why the cost is this high. As you can see, in 2022, the total number of days that it takes for the data breach to be identified and to be contained is 277 days. That means if an attack happens on 1st of January, it takes until this time, middle of October almost, for the data breach to be identified and contained, and that's why the cost is very high. And the interesting point for this report is the identification part, which you can see is very high. For example, in 2022, 207 days it takes for a data breach to be identified. That means attackers have access to the system, and they are sitting there for over 200 days, and it's not even identified by the company to work on it. And this is same thing, number of days based on different attack vector. and we can see stolen credentials, which you could see in the previous graph, had the highest number of path of attack. Here is 327 days to be identified and contained if attack happens using stolen credits. Now I go for some definition. What is the attack surface and what are the vulnerabilities? What is the definition of network? Data has three different states. Data in motion, when data is in move between point A and B. Data at rest, when it's sitting in a memory. And data under process or under manipulation, when it's being processed by a software, by a human, or whatever. Any point that your data in any of the three states exist is part of your network, including private and public cloud. So if you are using cloud and your data is going to cloud and get some processing there and coming back to your network or to your premise, to your company, what happens? It goes to the cloud and comes back. That portion of cloud that your data is there is part of your network, and it's your responsibility to protect that data. What is the attack surface? The set of all points of your network that an unauthorized user can get access to it is part of your vulnerability, and it's called your network surface or your attack surface. That's where attackers can attack you. What are the vulnerabilities? Generally speaking, either the technology that you use, the policy you have, we are talking about the security policies, the processes that you have defined based on those processes, and people. People, it's everyone, not just people in the security department, if you have a security department. People is any user. So these are vulnerabilities. Attackers focus what they can access. That means your network surface or your attack surface. That's why email is very popular for attackers, because it's very known. You can very easily find out about the domain of a company and about the format that they use for email. Then you can guess an email. That's the simplest thing. And also the edge of your network is very accessible to the attackers because it's sitting from your network to the outside world. That's why attackers focus on the piece of your edge of your network. There are some predictions that attackers make about your network. You have a network configuration you do not fully understand. Specifically for large enterprises, they have a very complicated IT system. Many users, even in the IT department, do not understand the configuration of the IT network. So that's one of the predictions that attackers make to initiate their attack. You have a shadow IT you do not know about. What is a shadow IT? Again, in large enterprises, you have a centralized IT, but this centralized IT cannot provide all the features and functions to every department. And some departments start to create their own IT and then connect that IT to the central IT. That piece of IT that the department creates is called shadow IT. And in this case, shadow IT is a big vulnerability, and attackers focus on it. Software and hardware providers, usually they think of user friendliness, the beauty, the price, It should be cheap. It should be compatible with the other equipments, and you can compete with the other competitors in the market. And they think of security as the very last point. From security point of view, the best security is security by design. That should be right from the beginning. That's another point that attackers think of that. And also, the last one, there are humans configuring your network and using your network, and humans can make mistakes. That's another point for attackers to think of. That's why in North America you saw that phishing is the highest number of attack type that happens through people. So some cybersecurity recommendations based on those 4 vulnerabilities that I mentioned to you: technology, process, policy, process, and people. There are some recommendations that what we can do. We need to make our attack surface smaller, as small as we can. Implement a proper and accurate risk analysis. That's for all businesses, even for individual people. You are connected to an internet, then you have some vulnerability you can think of. Buy insurance if it's available, it's kind of mitigation. Make the accepted risk as low as possible. Implement a policy for each major threat, such as phishing, denial of service. For each major threat, create a policy, and based on definition, policy should be written as simple as a document for a grade 9 student. That means a grade 9 student can read and understand it. And they must be reinforced directly. So that's the point. If you cannot reinforce it, then it doesn't matter how well it's written. Implement a process for each function. Prepare procedures and guidelines. Make sure they are understood, applied, and enforced. Again, enforcement is very important. In many companies, they create a one-page instructions or guideline, and then ask people to read it, even sign it, and that's it. And then they don't go back to it, they don't update it, they don't enforce it. So the enforcement is very important. Get a password manager and have it used by your employees at work and at home. If your employees are working at home, which happens these days a lot, many employees work at home. Implement a secure connectivity from outside using virtual private network or a secure tablet, laptop, company provided. Get visibility into your network, monitor your data in all 3 states that I mentioned. Ensure you are using the security features afforded to you already. You remember what happened to Equifax? They had a patch available, but they delayed in applying the patch. Use multi-factor authentication. Many companies provide multi-factor authentication for you. Just use it. Removing unused features and services, patching and updates, proper and continuous backups. And for the people vulnerability, which was the 4th part of vulnerability, the best mitigation is to implement a proper setup program. And setup program is security education, training, awareness. And there is a guideline specifically issued by ISC Square for education, training, and awareness, which has lots of detail. I don't go there. I have just here identified the program scope, identify training staff, prepare management and employees for training, administer the program, monitor, evaluate, and redefine, modify the program. And that must be continuously revisited and continuously to make sure that people are getting the updates, are getting trained, specifically for new employees that you hire. They must get this training because, as you saw, people in many, many cases are considered to be the most vulnerable part of cyber attacks. Now for the last section, I talk about what happened for cybersecurity and engineering, specifically in Ontario. PEO, Professional Engineers Ontario, had a task force called Emerging Disciplines Task Force. This task force was established in 2008. I joined the task force as a subject matter expert for cybersecurity, and I led the communication infrastructure engineering working group of this task force as a vice chair. And within the 3 years time frame, from 2008 to 2011, we reviewed the similar university programs in North America. We consulted with the public and private stakeholders in the cybersecurity area. We created the core body of knowledge for CIE. I mentioned just CIE, Communication Infrastructure Engineering, was the name that we chose at that time for cybersecurity engineering. And the reason for that was in US, they were using similar name, and we wanted to basically follow them and use many experiences and information that they had. And we presented this core body of knowledge and our report, phase 1 report, to PEO Council in 2010. And what happened, PEO Council approved CIE as the 32nd engineering discipline in Ontario. That means as of 2010, in Ontario, officially, we have a cybersecurity engineering discipline. But what happened after that? Parallel to what the task force was doing for PEO, some like-minded engineers outside PEO got together and established a group called Engineers for Engineers. For several years, even prior to 2008, they were working on different issues of industry. One of them was cybersecurity. And later on, they changed their names to Engineers for the Profession. What happened in 2021, the Emerging Discipline Task Force was stood down at PEO. So basically, that activity was canceled. We were still working on a phase 2 report to complete the CIE, or Cybersecurity Engineering discipline. And after it was stood down, we registered Engineers for the Profession as a not-for-profit organization in 2021. And I was one of the founding members and also the board member for the Engineering for the Profession. And we are still working within the Engineers for the Profession for discipline-based regulation. It is not affiliated with PEO, but many of the PEO members, even past presidents of PEO, are members of Engineers for Profession and are working in this area. This is what happens in Ontario. So in Ontario, we are here based on cybersecurity engineering. At the same time, we had a couple of Alberta PNGs joined Engineers for the Profession in Ontario and working with us. And one of them has initiated a work in Alberta, which again, I'm happy that I'm working with that engineer as well in Alberta. They are working with APEGA and with Government of Alberta that they create some engineering discipline or some kind of enforcement for critical infrastructure protection and cybersecurity, and they want this to be legally recognized by APEGA and government of Alberta. And this is what is happening in Alberta. And this is my last slide. We have enough time for Q&A. What happens in the future? So you saw that what we have today in Ontario, based on cybersecurity and engineering, we have CIE as a discipline, and I was on ERC, Experience Requirements Committee, interviewing applicants who applied for license in cybersecurity area. But within several years, the total number of applicants who attended interview or applied for licensure were less than 50. And that's bad. That indicates that we don't have really engineers working in cybersecurity area, licensed engineers. We need to stop practice of non-engineers working in the field of cybersecurity. And that's one of the biggest issues, because now there are many, many organizations who provide certification in cybersecurity and courses. People take those courses and get to the industry and become cybersecurity professional and start to design cybersecurity protection, even for critical infrastructure, without being an engineer and without considering what is important for engineers to do the cybersecurity design. Need of an acceptable national and international practice guidelines for cybersecurity, that's another point that we are missing today. There are several different standards and guidelines for cybersecurity, but none of them is acceptable by everyone. And that's again another big issue. In US, you can see that mostly they use NIST, National Institute of Science and Technology, recommendation for cybersecurity, but even not all organizations use that. In Canada, different organizations use different standards. And finally, we need awareness and enforcement on cybersecurity. As you know, October is the month of cybersecurity awareness. So, and that's a good coincidence of having this conference with this month. Awareness and enforcement on cybersecurity is one major point that is missing. Even you can see this is missing in government entities and critical infrastructure entities and organizations like that. With that, thank you very much. That was my presentation. Sorry for any shortcoming.
Thanks very much, Angie. Are there any questions from the floor? Board changes, you're welcome. I know we have one virtual question, but I'd like you to all, if you have your questions, the mic's in the middle, don't be shy.
So that's good, no question.
Yeah, we had a virtual question. It was actually a two-part question. The first one was about the NIST framework, but that's pretty much clear with the last slide. The second part of the question was, do we have any similar initiatives in Canada similar to the NIST framework?
Yeah, we have the Center for Cybersecurity in Canada, which is the organization responsible for cybersecurity, but again, that's just an entity. There is no real relationship between that entity and all the organizations which are responsible for critical infrastructure in Canada. And also, the main point is the Center for Cybersecurity is using different standards and guidelines. They use NIST as well, but not generally in every area. Can you please use the microphone?
Yeah, that's fine, sorry. Is that better? Oh,
Yeah.
jeez. Hi.
Hi.
Are password managers significantly better than other, like, general security things? Like, what happens if a password manager company gets hacked?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I personally do not use password manager. So if that's an acceptable answer for you. We have the different organization or different service providers provide password managers, but what matters is how secure the organization is that is offering that password manager. My own experience, you can use phrases for your password with some changes, which is easy to remember. It's long. It's 15, 16 minimum characters that you can use, and you can use different characters, special characters and everything. In that case, you don't need to use password manager. But to give you an answer, it depends on which password manager from which company you are using. Some of them are very good, some of them aren't.
Okay, thank you.
We have another question from the virtual audience. What is the difference between a cybersecurity engineering discipline and a professional engineer getting a cyber designation such as CISSP?
There is a difference between moon and the sun. Yeah, the cybersecurity CIE discipline is an engineering license which PO gives to applicants working or practicing in cybersecurity area. CISSP is a certificate by ISC Square. ISC Square is a US-based organization which provides training and certification courses. But that's one of the issues that I mentioned. Today, even in Canada, CISSP certificate holder has more value than CIE license holder. That's an unfortunate. But they are completely different. Of course, ICS Square has its own code of conduct, which is very good, very strong in some cases, but anyway, it's not engineering.
Hi, my name is Jasmine. I'm part of the Girls System program. And one of my question is, why do people want information from the healthcare, from hospitals? Are they trying to know what medication we use, or why do they want our personal information?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Attackers do not care if the data they are stealing is from healthcare or from civil engineering department, or what they want is the information itself to gain money. So it doesn't matter. If healthcare has vulnerability and they can get access to it and steal information from healthcare, which apparently they can, because there are many different standards that they have to comply with, and that creates some complication, which within that complication, there will be another type of vulnerability defined. But they don't care if it's healthcare or any other industry. They just need the data to sell it.
Okay, thank you.
So the personal information.
Yeah.
Right. Well, on that note, if there's no further questions, let's close up this session. Let's have a round of applause for Shanghai.